You're listening to the Jiu Jitsu podcast, and I'm Lou Temlett. I'm guessing you're having a good day because either you've been on the mats, considering getting on the mats, or maybe you're growing your skills to teach. I'm so happy you're here listening or watching this episode. Please don't tap out before the end. When you want to return to enjoying life, start training Jiu Jitsu. I'd like to welcome Ange Taylor to my podcast. Hi Ange, how are you?
Hi Lou, thanks for having me back again.
Absolutely. We haven't spoken on the podcast for about a year, nearly 50 episodes ago, which I'm very grateful to have you back on the show and to be here on your own. Last time you showed up with your sensei, and I'm just grateful that we can exist in a space, and I'm kind of grateful that you feel brave enough to come back on and have a conversation with me. This episode is going to be much more conversational piece. Don't quite know where it's going to go yet, but we have spoken a number of times, Ange. So I'm really looking forward to hearing your journey since we last spoke and kind of what's coming up for you. So let's have a little bit of reflection around one of your last competitions in Vegas.
Oh, yeah. I ended up going to the World Masters in Las Vegas. And wow, it was amazing. Vegas was never a top priority of mine. But now that I've been there, I can honestly say it's one of my favorite places.
Oh, wow. Okay. Now, I've only ever seen it from TV programs like CSI, because I'm that old. And, you know, when anyone kind of discusses having a quick wedding, they go down to Vegas and they get married by fake Elvis. But tell me about the experience in Vegas and why it is so fantastic.
So last year had been like quite a long year, and there was a lot of stuff I'd been going through. But Vegas came up, put loads of training in for it, was really excited. My first trip ever to America, and I just took it by the horns. I did fly out with a coach of mine with his now wife, but we obviously stayed in separate accommodations and all of that. And we did meet up and do a few bits and pieces, and we did like gambling together. I mean, I only gambled like a $10 because you know when you're a bit poor, you just have to go with a little bit.
Yeah.
We did a pool party, which was amazing, and both of us obviously competed. And it was just so amazing going to Jiu Jitsu Con and seeing what was there and being able to compete there. And just, yeah, there's so many big names in Jiu Jitsu walking around like normal people. I mean, they are normal people, but...
So did you happen to become a bit starstruck, and who did you see?
Yeah, I was a bit starstruck. I didn't go anywhere near these very famous people because I was like, I had to compete, focus, like head in the game. But yeah, so it was just a really nice atmosphere being there in that convention center. I mean, I competed and it didn't go my way, but like during the fight, I felt really good and I felt like I was doing all the right things, and it was just not my day.
Yeah.
But the experience of going and being by myself, going to a swimming pool by myself with a book, like it's something I've never done.
Yeah.
I really wanted to go see the Antelope Canyons and the Horseshoe Bend, and I booked an excursion, and I did that all by myself, which was like such an amazing experience. And to show myself that like I can do things by myself was so much more fulfilling than winning. I mean, it would have been nice, an added bonus, winning a medal, but the life experience I gained and the opportunity that Jiu Jitsu gave me was way more important. and fulfilling. So
no, that sounds an incredible journey just in itself. And I think there is something to be said. You know, when you're maybe in your 20s, you want to be in a relationship and you have friends around you. And we all end up in somewhat of a kind of codependent relationship. And there's always somebody else around, whether from childhood, it's our parents or grandparents kind of going through life, maybe a loved one or some very close friends. But actually, taking the step to do some of these things on our own is incredibly important for our own growth and well-being in a way. And I think being able to do that and just have that pride, some of the feeling of independence, that if you had to rely on yourself at any point in your life, then you could do it in any number of circumstances. And what makes it so much more wonderful for you, Ange, is that you were going to be with a much wider international jiu-jitsu family. And Jiu-Jitsu Con, I believe it's kind of a big anniversary this year. And, you know, it's kids competing, juniors, adults, masters, and beyond. And I think, you know, it just brings together a whole range of different people that might not always be at local competitions. How did you go about preparing for Jiu-Jitsu Con?
just lots of training, lots of mental prep work and visualization, eating well, strength and conditioning. Yeah, it was obviously, any competition is hard to prep for, especially if you've got a full-time job and a household. And I mean, if you've got kids or pets, it's really difficult to juggle all of that.
Yeah.
So, but it's always worth it. So the early mornings of waking up and going lifting heavy things at 5:30 in the morning, when all you want to do is sleep in, and then you spend the whole day at work, and then you rush home, get some food in you, and then go and spend 3 hours at jiu-jitsu. Like, that is, it doesn't sound ideal, like when you speak about it, but when you're doing it, it just feels amazing.
Yeah. I can only imagine, because I haven't been in that situation. I haven't put myself through that level of competition prep yet. There's still time. I'm only a blue belt. It's all fine.
I would say just do it. Jump in, do it.
I mean, I've done a couple of kind of, you know, a couple of competitions, but not with the mindset or the time frame in my kind of mindset to really prepare. The early mornings, you know, lifting heavy weights. When my youngest was a little bit younger, it would be, you know, lifting her out of the cot into my bed because she needed cuddles, or, you know, carrying her wherever. And I often joke that, you know, carrying the children around, or, you know, the shopping up the stairs is, you know, my strength and conditioning. But it sounds like all of your preparation really put you in a good stead. However, on the back of that, it sounds like quite an obsessive, kind of concentrated amount of time, and in a way that, like you say, it's doesn't sound quite so healthy. The waking really early, the working out, the doing a full day's work, coming back and doing more 3 hours of jiu-jitsu training or whatever it happens to be. But I know some of the food prep. I saw a number of your Instagram posts with delicious meals. Tell me about how easy that was to fit into your training schedule.
Normally, when I'm prepping for a comp, like Europeans or the World Masters, about a month or two prior, we've got a really good friend that trains with us who's a chef who does meal preps. So I would normally get him involved for the last couple of weeks leading up to do meals for me 2 times a day.
Yeah.
Chicken, rice, it's all calorie counted, it's all healthy, it's all really, really, really tasty. And I mean, I know it's something I could do, but if I meal prep on a Sunday, that's my afternoon gone.
Yeah.
And I would only have the same meals because I'd rather just cook one big batch instead of like 2 different meals. Whereas Kitchen HQ give you really good meals and they all like high protein, calorie counted, and they just help. So when you need like that extra bit of just relaxation, he just takes that off, like the pressure off you, so you can actually relax. But yeah, other than that, I do meal prep for myself majority of the time, and I've actually started doing all my meals on a Sunday. So from breakfast to dinner, they all get pre-cooked on a Sunday, and just saves me a bit of time.
I like that idea. And actually, with that training schedule that you talk about, not having to then do some of the household food prep sounds like, I was going to say a luxury. It sounds like a much needed kind of part of your whole program. Just one less thing to worry about in everything else that life has to offer.
Yeah.
I think, what you're doing is amazing. And, any of us that do or have or will meal prep on a Sunday, how easy is it to do and what benefit does it actually bring, Ange?
I mean, it's dead easy, especially now because I've done it for 4 or 5 years. Even when I'm not in preparation, I sort of pre-cook all my meals anyway, just so I can get home, spend a bit of time with the dog, and then go training and that. But it has taken me a while to find the hang of it. Whereas I used to cook all the chicken separately, all the veg separately, all the rice separately, and then I got really bored of plain rice. So then my Kitchen HQ suggested like a roux sort of thing of like garlic and paprika that you like mix in, and it just gives the rice some flavor. And then that was an extra thing. So by the time I was finished, I had every single pot, every single utensil in the house was used, and I was like, oh, I have to do all these dishes. What saved me was I got a dishwasher eventually.
Okay. So the advice is, if you're going to meal prep, get a dishwasher.
Yeah. Or
okay. Yep.
I have found now that I can cook all my chicken in a pot. I then put some vegetable stock in it with my rice, and I finish cooking the chicken and the rice together. So it's all in one pot. And then I just add the veg on top of it. So I only use one pot now.
Amazing.
Amazing.
I think it's great how we adapt when we have to do something that we find the process really boring. We find ways to improve and enhance and make life a bit more efficient than it might have been. When you were talking about using all the pots and pans, you took me immediately in my mind back to my student days, where I lived with about 4 or 5 guys, and every single piece of cutlery, and I don't think they were spreading butter with knives. I think it was probably a slotted spoon at one point. All the plates, all the bowls, and all the pans. I'm just very grateful I'm no longer a student.
Yeah. I'm glad I'm no student either.
But we love students,
Yes.
they teach us lots of things, they learn lots of things, and maybe we wish we were that young again, but who knows. This is a Jiu Jitsu Lou podcast with me, Lou Temlett, coming to you from the UK. Go and check out the latest video clips over on jiu.jitsu.lu. And as you're listening or watching on your favourite podcast platform, I'd really appreciate you dropping the show a rating and a review. Today, I'm having a conversation with Ange Taylor. Ange, thank you so much for joining me again, as you did nearly a year ago. Things haven't been quite so easy. So whilst the meal prep is easy and the efficiency's gone up and the training's gone up, tell me about some of the challenges that you've had, if you're comfortable with sharing some of the life things that you've had to work through that might resonate with people listening.
Yeah. Last year was definitely a year of healing and unpacking, I suppose, childhood trauma and figuring out who I am and what I need for myself. I initially started the journey in October 23. Had like a mini breakdown, was booked off work for a number of months, had really bad anxiety, really bad depression. It got to a point where I couldn't leave the house other than go to jiu-jitsu because that's where I felt safe in those initial months of having that breakdown.
Yeah.
But I slowly started working with a psychotherapist and started healing. And last year was just a year of healing, as well as adding additional trauma to the list. But hey ho.
I just want to hold space for you sharing, because life from the outside can look okay, can be interpreted by other people as us being okay, but actually inside we might be dealing with some really difficult things, and you never really know. Part of my mindset is you never really know what's going on with somebody else, but actually to kind of proceed in life with kindness and understanding, not necessarily a worst case for our own scenario, but perceiving maybe a worst case scenario for other people. Maybe if they're kind of triggered by something and something happens, just appreciating that, there's something underneath. There's almost a kind of iceberg effect of, a reaction, but actually underneath that, there's a whole heap of things. And you mentioned childhood trauma. And I think, when some of us have been through difficult circumstances and experiences throughout our life, they can almost get compounded. And jiu-jitsu, whilst it's a very safe space, and we're supported by community, it also allows us to be completely silent about all of the stuff that's happening in our lives, and nobody ever really knows, and nobody has any real need to scratch below the surface and see and kind of support in other ways. How did it feel coming out of your home to go to jiu-jitsu, and that was your only kind of safe space during that time?
It felt good because knowing that I felt safe enough to go there, because I kept the secret for however, the incident happened from when I was 5. And I'd never spoken about it. I'd never told a single soul until that October.
Yeah.
And throughout the years, I think I'd always used jiu-jitsu, like you said, as a coping method. I didn't have to talk about anything. I didn't have to think about it. I could just keep it buried further and further and further and further down. But I think I knew deep down inside there was something slowly poisoning me, I don't know how else to explain it. I wasn't reaching my full potential. Something constantly was always holding me back. I'd always try to be positive. I always try to have like the best mindset and try have self-confidence going into competitions. And I just always struggled and came short. And yeah, once I started talking about it and opened it up, it was rough. Like, I'm not gonna lie, dealing with it was absolutely excruciating. And there was some days I was like, what is the point? Why have I done this? But the person I am today is outweighs the person I was a year ago, even a week ago. Like, I know full well that I am strong enough to handle any challenge that is like thrown at me, and I'll just keep pushing through it and keep going. I mean, there were many times where I did think, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. I don't see the light. How much more do I have to take? But I just kept going and showing up at training. Only a handful of people at training knew, and they were obviously quite respectful and didn't bring it up. So let me heal in a way, but they didn't put pressure on me to discuss it and to work through it. They just were like, come on, you're part of the community, get in, get stuck in, get training. Get clear your head. Like,
I love the way our jiu-jitsu teammates and friends are there supporting from the sidelines. I mean, they can almost give us as much of a hard time as we can give ourselves, but actually just reiterating the fact that you are an incredibly resilient individual. And I think whilst that there's kind of mindsets and comments around jiu-jitsu is for everyone, I think jiu-jitsu is really for those resilient individuals that just know there's something more in life and they can keep pushing through. Else, why would we keep showing up every day, every other day, every weekend at open mats and competitions and all of those things? I think we all have a sense of resilience. So I just want to kind of give a nod to anyone that already trains jiu-jitsu for their resilience, and anyone listening that hasn't yet started training jiu-jitsu and you have a sense of resilience, get on the mats, come and join us, because jiu-jitsu is for you as much as the rest of us here. And thank you for sharing some of that. And I know sometimes also being on the jiu-jitsu mats can be quite triggering in lots of different ways. Certainly maybe for some of us women, when we're kind of on the bottom, people are in mount or high mount, and the physical scenarios that make life and trauma be re-triggered in us. But I think there's also ways to re-find our own balance and well-being, to see how we're training for that particular scenario rather than associate it with anything from our past. How have you found, I guess, the coming out from the hiding and the kind of keeping silent within yourself of the trauma you've experienced? Have you started to reflect in a way and see your jiu-jitsu journey in a different way at all?
Yeah, I have. I think a lot of it was done out of self-preservation, I guess. Yeah. And as you mentioned, there have been certain aspects that were a bit triggering last year. And I really, in the instance, I was like, oh, how am I going to deal with this?
Yeah.
But then I learned how to just calm my mind and told myself, well, you're in a safe space right now. This is not going to be the same. And I think having the competitions to sort of bring you back into reality, where you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I need to focus. Like, this is quite important. They do help in a sense of bringing the healing and the focus back, and you're not trapped in that flight or flight mode of frozen, like, oh, what's happening? How do I get out? Sort of thing.
Yeah. I think you're very right in kind of suggesting that, if you're in a trauma state, then you do feel unnerved, frozen in a state, not knowing which direction to turn and almost with no focus. But considering competition specifically within Jiu Jitsu, it allows us to have a direction for our thoughts and actions that are kind of synchronized in a way, because I know when some of us experience trauma, our minds can feel like we're very disconnected from our bodies, and actually the concept of jiu-jitsu bringing us closer to ourselves in a way to be able to take the next step forward, literally, whether it's onto the competition mats or up on the podium for a medal. It really brings us back together in that very present moment, because we can allow our thoughts to go back in time very easily. I think if anyone's kind of listening to this or watching, their mind might have immediately in that moment gone back in time, but we can be very present in the here and now. And I think that's the joy that jiu-jitsu kind of gives us. So I was interested to hear whether you now, in hindsight, looking back at your journey, see your journey in a different way at all.
Yeah, I mean, I do. I thought about it the other day. Even though I was going through all of that and healing, and if you look at it, I still got third at the Europeans last year. I still won my first ever invitational fight. I won at the British. I won at the London Open. So I was battling with all of that, but I had such a strong mindset and focus that I was still able to perform. Whereas initially I was like, I don't think I can do both. Fixing your mind and getting out of a state of depression and anxiety to then coping with competitions. And it just shows how resilient you are, how if you put your mind to it, you can get yourself through it. And I think for me, they both worked hand in hand. They both needed each other to be fulfilled to help me get me to the place where I am now. Obviously, competition's not for everybody, but I do believe jiu-jitsu will help anybody who is feeling like that.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think also it can be taken to an extreme as well, where we're, I don't know, I've not experienced this yet, maybe training too much or too obsessed about certain things. But I think it also gives us a sense of being able to relax in ourselves and feel like life's okay, because we have, we kind of know how to deal with things, or at least from a mindset perspective, we have some of that reassurance. And I know in practice that can be potentially very different, being put in difficult physical circumstances or difficult mental circumstances, and we might still, kind of flight or fight, or, completely disconnect from certain things. What kind of advice or support would you recommend to anyone going through dealing with some past trauma? How have you done it, and how might others benefit from understanding the way that you're processing things right now?
Well, I've had a really good support system behind me, from family to friends to my Jiu Jitsu community. I was very open with both head instructors about the childhood trauma and the trauma event that happened last year.
Yeah.
Told them exactly, and I've been quite open and honest with both of them quite regularly,
Yeah.
and checking in. And I've said to them, okay, well, these next few months of like competition season, I'm just going to take a bit of time out to sort like personal home life situation out a bit better. But yeah, seeing a psychotherapist has really helped. Just having that support of seeing somebody regularly, weekly, for a year. I've seen her, and just going through all the horrible stuff. Like, that's the only way I managed to get through it, was just going through it. Yeah, obviously some days were horrendous.
Yeah.
And had multiple panic attacks or slept for days. But on the other hand, having the training in place where I knew people were expecting me. So my strength and conditioning coach, he wakes up early so I can go and lift heavy stuff with him. So I needed to show up because he was taking time out of his day to get there. I was expected at training because I was doing all these big comps and people were putting time and effort to be there for me. So having that as an additional motivator helped me not just dwell in, not really self-pity, but just, there were some days where I just didn't want to do anything. I just wanted to lie in bed and feel sorry for myself. But I was like, no, you need to go train. Like, people are putting time and effort. You've signed up and you've paid for these comps that cost like an absolute fortune, some of them. You need to show up and put a shift in so that you can do well and prove to yourself. Like, it's also like learning how to talk to yourself better. Like, initially I used to have a lot of self-doubt, lacked self-confidence, and the way I spoke to myself was reflected in that. Whereas now I do my best to have better self-confidence, and I do talk to myself about 98% of the time better than I used to. It's still a work in progress. It's not an overnight journey. Like, it's not just, it's not a quick fix. It's a long, hard road, but see the light. It's there.
I like the fact that you can see the light, and I'm quite heartened to hear your vulnerability. And I think, part of the progress down the line maybe is being able to rely on yourself and count on yourself for all of those things. But in the interim period, having individuals that are there committed to helping you, we have to allow them to help us and accept their support. Whether it's, I'm not sure, and I would agree to be waking up quite so early. I'm much more of a night owl and will work until, the late hours sometimes of each morning. So it doesn't quite correlate for me. But having someone there, you having to, them relying on you showing up, and that's actually quite a really good thing to be able to, give yourself a bit of a prompt, in a kind way. But actually, I want to say you have to be cruel to be kind, but there's an element of making an effort to, show up for other people. But ultimately, in doing that, you're learning to show up for yourself at some point in the future, more so than maybe, you know, when we're going through traumatic times or dealing with depression. We have to really allow other people to help us, and they have to count on us to show up. I don't know whether I made any sense, but in my mind, having all those people around you, counting on you, waiting at the gym door or wherever it is, and they're waiting for you, you've got to show up. You know, you can't let those individuals down, because it would potentially, you know, you end up giving yourself more of a hard time for letting yourself down, for not showing up for the people that you were letting down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hopefully I got there in a roundabout way.
Yeah. The days when I did miss it, I was like, oh, you should have just done it. Like, why? Like, then it's a whole day of like bad talk to yourself. Whereas, I mean, I've learned now that if you need to take time and you're not in preparation for a competition, just take the time.
Yeah. And there's also an element of feeling guilty as well for not showing up. And we have to learn to be able to release those feelings, you know, the negative self-talk, whether it's conscious or not. You know, if you feel guilty about anything, then there's a mindset check as to what the heck are you doing? Why are we making ourselves feel this way? What's going on? What questions do we need to answer within ourselves if we are making ourselves feel guilty at any point? And that can be related to shame, and lots of other kind of perceived negative emotions. But actually, it's a little flag saying, check in on yourself, make sure everything's okay, find a way to feel okay about this situation, because you are okay.
Yeah.
Well, and you know what you shared, I'm sure, you know, hopefully not everybody listening, but some of us will understand the journey that you're going through, and it's not a quick journey. I think all of us know that, you know, depression, anxiety, all of these things take time to unpick. But actually knowing that we have the community of Jiu Jitsu teammates in our local gyms, around the country, or even around the world, you know, everyone's there rooting for us, at a kind of near or far distance, you know, making sure that we're all okay.
Yeah.
What are you considering for the next kind of 12, 18 months in your jiu-jitsu career? Because you're a purple belt now, and I'm assuming you're still training partly regularly, and doing good stuff. What else is happening on the jiu-jitsu front for you?
As I mentioned, I'm obviously taking a few months out of competing, but I'm hoping to get more involved in teaching within the club. I really have found that I enjoy it. On like bad days, just being there with the kids and teaching them something is actually quite an eye-opener, and I leave feeling like so much fulfillment. And then, I would like to get back into competing and feel that side of me that sort of at the minute feels like it's got a bit of FOMO, like I've lost a bit of myself, but I know like I can't juggle everything at the minute. So so eventually get back into competing, more teaching, and just carry on learning and being the best version of myself in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I think being the best version of ourselves is, you know, what we all are at this particular time. We can't be anything else. You know, if we're kind of true and honest and vulnerable with ourselves, we're the best we can be right now. And actually, you know, there's no energy to give ourselves a hard time to say we could be better, we should be better. That needs to go to the, you know, wherever. out of our mindset. Yeah, exactly. Thank you for a very polite response there. I was trying to be very diplomatic and not finding any replacement words for what I was going to say. But, it is, every day is the best day. And I think we all just need to hold on to that. And I love the energy around you talking about teaching and the fulfillment you feel supporting, our young jiu-jitsu kind of teammates and potential athletes coming through, seeing other people grow in such a kind of speedy way. They seem to pick up things very quickly. And are just there. They want to learn. They're kind of sponges of jiu-jitsu, and I think that's the joy as well, being able to see what you can share with others, and then it having an impact, and their lives, their technique, whatever is happening for them is changing. And as an observer, you can see that. But I think there's also a little mindful bit there that each and every time we train, if we were to kind of take a bird's eye view on our progress, actually we've all progressed. We all change and adapt and grow in every session without giving ourselves a hard time.
Yeah.
I think, we need to take that one away. And how can people continue to follow your progress and your journey, possibly with some more teaching experience? Where can people follow you?
Well, I'm quite active on Instagram. I think the handle is like Ange.Taylor_BJJ. I post quite regularly. I post about like mental health and mindset and jiu-jitsu related stuff. I try not to get too into the politics unless it does really feel like I should have a say on it. But quite active on social media. Good. Otherwise, you can always pop in if you're around Derby or Ilkeston into our gyms at Allegiance Jiu-Jitsu. And there's quite a big female community there. So,
good.
That's where I am most of the time.
Amazing. And a massive shout out to all the women that train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, particularly in your area. And when I've kind of come up and, done some open mats and things, there are so many women training and they're all incredibly supportive. So I really feel like you're in a good space with people around you. So many people.
Yeah, I'm very lucky, very fortunate to have the support system I have.
Yeah. Okay. Ange, thank you so much for joining me again. I will be gently following your journey and absorbing positive mindset. And, thank you so much for being so vulnerable and honest during this episode. And, life is hard, but we're all here supporting you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for having me. It was great chatting to you.
Good. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you for telling your friends about this show. And as soon as this episode ends, I'd really appreciate you dropping the show a rating and a review. Thanks again for listening. Catch you on the next episode of the Jiu Jitsu podcast.